And without further ado, we'll move on to the next presentation. First question that I have for both you, Sal and Leo, is: do you guys have a PowerPoint that you need to share?
Yeah, sure do. Do you want me to share it
Okay.
from my computer or should it
Just
be yours?
I want you to give me like 2 seconds so that I can give you permission to share it. So I'm gonna
Sure.
make you a co-host real quick. So
Okay, great.
and then what about you, Leo? No. Okay. You should be able to share your screen now, Sal.
Okay.
Um, all right. So, like I mentioned at the start of the session, and I know you guys came on a little bit late, but just to let you know, my name is Noel Vest. I'll just basically be the kind of the host for this session. That means saying I'm going to introduce you all. I'm going to get out of your way, and I'll give you like a 2-minute warning at the end if you're still kind of going. Feel free, if you end early, to open it up to questions, or I can jump on and open it up to questions as well. The only other thing that I would like to just invite everyone on this call, and not just people presenting, although specifically people presenting. And I know this can be tough. Our language sometimes is very difficult to change, and but just really invite people to look, especially at the research on people first language, and making sure that we're identifying people not through their substance use disorder or not through their relationship with the criminal justice system. So really trying to stay away from words like offender and addict and things like that when we talk about people. The research is pretty clear that it's damaging to those individuals, and so just again invite people to check out that research and try and use people first language as much as possible. And with that, I'll hand it over to Sal. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Noel. Appreciate that. It's good to see you again. We did this last year together. And in any case, my goal is to be brief today because I have a wonderful colleague, Leo Hylton, is on with me today, who I really want to speak. I spoke to this last year, which is reentry for returning citizens. And what does that look like? I don't need to preach to the choir. Everybody in this room knows that the system is set up for you to fail. It has more loopholes in it than you can imagine. But what I really appreciate about Dr. J's message from before was that there are pathways. You have to seek them out, though. And sometimes, most of the time, that requires more work on our part. That's just the reality. So I would like to just remind the audience of some realities today, and then turn it over to Leo, because I thought instead of me just kind of rehashing what I'm passionate about as a returned citizen from over 30 years ago, with Leo still being incarcerated, giving a perspective on these barriers before actually returning. And so what does that look like? But our whole message is making the barriers bearable, and in some cases even beautiful, if that's what we're trying to create. But it requires an attitude and adjustment and a belief system on our part that is persistent and passionate. So let me just kind of run through very quickly what my main points are before turning it over to Leo. Like Dr. J, I like some quotes as well. I'll offer two to you today. One of the most courageous things you can do is identify yourself, know who you are, what you believe in, and where you want to go. So that's from Sheila Murray Bethel. So, and that's key point of today. Like part of being successful returning is knowing what you want to do and knowing how to promote yourself doing it. The second one is offer yourselves in service to the world, cultivate a posture to walk straight into your not knowing, and take the risk of failing and failing again and again, then getting up to learn again and again. If I don't leave you with anything else today, it's the persistence that pays off. Because let's be real, the barriers are everywhere, they are heavy, and they are meant to keep you from having a sustainable life. The people that succeed are the ones that aren't supported by that. And don't get me wrong, there are days you're going to have that are discouraging, but you pick yourself up the next day and you start over again, or you talk to somebody new. One of the most valuable pieces of information that I ever received upon returning was a friend of mine who said, look, 9 out of 10 doors are going to be closed to you. They won't even want to talk to you or listen to you, but that 10th one will listen to your story and create possibility. And that's exactly what my reality has been. 30 years plus since I've been back, and I have a PhD, I've traveled the world, I train, I've educated, I've been a psych professor, and I still run into those barriers still to this day, personally and professionally. All people got to do is Google you, and all of a sudden the conversation's over. I don't need to tell you what you already know. So here we go. The barriers are real. It's ironic that you are returning and expected to be a responsible citizen, and yet you are denied the very basic rights to be sustainable. It's hard to get housing. You can't get education. Your relationships are thin. Just you name it, and it's set up to work against you. And normally, what we concentrate on reentry is two things: housing and a job, right? Employment, which again, ironically, are the two toughest things to obtain. As with a record, I have found even more important than housing and employment is having people that are in your corner, a positive social support network. And I'm talking about people that are your cheerleaders, that will cheer you on regardless of the circumstances. People you can share your successes and your challenges with daily, weekly, but no matter what the message, it is a positive one. It is one of support, because you will get redirected. You will have doors closed. You will get sidetracked. But when you have people that are in your corner, it makes a world of difference for your emotional health, your mental health, and your persistence. Knowing yourself is the key to this. That is, everybody in this room and outside of it has gifts to offer the world. Know what your skills are. Know what your gifts are. When you can market your gifts or your strengths or your skills, if they're not gifts, then you can find there will be a place for you. You might have to look harder than most, but there will be a place for you. Sharing your story, owning it, right? I used to run from my story. I was a psych professor for 15 years, and I lived in shame, hoping nobody would ever find out, until I went through transformation and realized I need to own my story and start sharing it. And then I started sharing it everywhere. I would show up at meetings I didn't even need to be at, sewing meetings, I don't care, shopping meetings. So it didn't matter. I just showed up at meetings and I started sharing my story. And what happened was, where I had defined myself by this mistake that I made as being my story, it eventually, as I shared, it became one of my stories. It was just a chapter in my life. Not only was it a chapter in my life, it was a chapter that actually empowered me, not discouraged me, once I got to that perspective, right? Well, this is an empowering story to share. It inspires others depending on how you share it. And when you find the right ears, can create possibility. So 2 questions you want to ask yourself: how do you see yourself, and how do you want others to see you? That's for further conversation. But I really only on this slide want to pay attention to the 3rd bullet, which is what I had said earlier. Keep going until you find the receptive, supportive ear. It's not going to be, it's going to be that 1 out of 10. That's a made up stat, but just you get what I'm talking about. You keep going till you get the ear that listens to your story, supports you, and helps you find a place moving towards sustainability, success, and healing if needed. Last but not least, you need to be humble in your persistence. If you're going with a bullhorn everywhere, all you're going to do is scare people away and shut them down. Own your story with confidence, but humility. Acknowledge that you might have made a mistake. However, that mistake has made you a better person today as a result, and you're better off for it, which is why you're better off for that job or for that apartment or for that degree. Be persistent, be patient, and if you are religious or spiritual, pray, and if not, meditate, but surround yourself with the people that support you. That is my message, and I want to now turn it over to my colleague, Leo. Leo and I met through an online session. I think it was on repairing and reconnecting relationships. He was a participant in the audience, and we once I heard his story as he shared with the audience, I immediately reached out to him so that we could continue this work together, and he's going to offer a perspective from inside. And the importance of this, folks, is a lot of times we think of reentry as from the moment that they leave, but reentry really should have been started, in my opinion, the moment they got locked up, and particularly a year before they are released. I'm going to let Leo tell you his credentials and everything, but he's currently a PhD student. And we have kind of unofficially, we're mentoring each other. So, Lee, I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you for being here with me today.
So glad to be here. Very well said, as always. And I don't know about everybody else in the room, but I've had a whole lot of talking heads on Zoom. And so I'd like to take a moment to invite people to come on camera so we can have a little bit of discussion. I know the time is short, but even the shortest of moments, connection can be made. And so I'd like to invite a little bit of openness and connection here. Thank you. So for Sal's opening quote was by Sheila Murray Bethel. Love seeing faces, love seeing faces. Thank you. And she said, one of the most courageous things you can do is identify yourself, know who you are, what you believe in, and where you want to go. I would add, and what you have to offer, right? To Sal's other point, is that each person on the inside has something to offer to the world. And to my question to Dr. J earlier about what community members can do, right? There is this sense of learned helplessness, that there is only so much that we can do when these systems have been in place for so long. And so to the idea of having a social support network, right? That's community. We need community. And I've been in now for 15 years, all but 5 weeks of my adult life. I'm 33 now. And all but 5 weeks of my adult life have been spent incarcerated. And over these 15 years, I've seen people cycle in and out of the different facilities I've been in. I've spent 13 and a half here in this prison. And just within the last month, I can't tell you how many people of the same faces I've seen return. And sometimes they come back with abject shame. Sometimes they come back with a, hey, you know how hard it is out there. And sometimes it's that mixture of, hey, I screwed up. And there were all of these barriers that were set up for me to stumble. And eventually I just couldn't do it anymore. And so I've helped people over and over and over again through this process. And each time I hold on to hope that maybe this time will be it, right? That maybe this time they will succeed. Maybe this time they will be able to overcome each one of these barriers. And I've come to a greater understanding over time that we have to work to dismantle the barriers. That so long as these barriers exist, the cycles of incarceration and harm are going to be continued. The system perpetuates harm. And so our collective responsibility, regardless of our positionality, because right now I'm at the bottom. I am in prison, right? I am a currently incarcerated human being. And so far as society is concerned, I'm one step above the grave. Right? So it doesn't matter if you are at the very, very bottom, or you are just barely off the ground, or you are all the way at the top where you have some type of leadership position in an organization or in government. We all have a role to play in cultivating community and interrupting these cycles of harm. And so, yes, these barriers exist. And we all have a role to play to not just help people overcome the barriers, but also to work to dismantle them. And one of the big things that all of us can do is carry these stories, right? The stories of Sal, the stories of Dr. J, the stories of so many people who have been in and through this system and cycled back in and through the system over and over again. We can each carry these stories in our families, in our communities, in our friend groups, in our organizations, in the people in positions of power who we know, who we are connected to through one form or another. We can carry these stories, we can share these stories, and we can call people into the conversations, the really hard conversations about the collective responsibility that we have to interrupt these cycles of harm. How when we don't actively participate in the dismantling of these barriers, we find ourselves in a place of complicity with the system, right? And that is a hard truth for some people, for a lot of people, right? Not just some people. It is hard. It is hard. This work is hard and it is tiring. It can be thoroughly exhausting. And that's why we need each other. This little space on Zoom that we have right now with these little 20 minutes that we have together, we have the opportunity to make connection, to build community in this space and carry what we establish in this space outside of this space. But it's that challenge. It's that invitation into translating these moments of connection into something bigger, right? Like Sal coming in and being like, Leo, brother, we have to connect, right? You shared your story, it resonated with me, and we have to do something together. He took the initiative to follow up with me after an event that I was blessed just to be at. And so with whatever space you hold, whatever position you hold, you have an opportunity every time that you wake up in the day, every time that you hold a meeting, every time that you join a meeting, to carry somebody's story, to help open somebody else's eyes to the systemic barriers that are in place, and to invite people into this work to help dismantle those barriers. And so with that, I want to save these last few minutes for personal sharing, connection, questions, concerns, right? What can we do collectively from where we are with what we have to not just let this be another conversation, but to translate into some type of action?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick, Leo. Really, really great. Just a reminder, I think that, you get so entrenched in the work that you're doing, and you're trying to make sure that you're kind of including everyone's voice and trying to create community as much as you can. So your message is very well felt by me today, especially. But I'm kind of curious. It's been a long time since I was in prison, almost 13 years now. And so I don't think I have that recency, that mindset of recency. And so I'm just kind of curious, like, I know what was on my mind as I was, kind of thinking about getting out someday. And so I'm just kind of curious, what are your thoughts? What are the barriers that you're kind of seeing? What are the things that you're fearful of as you kind of go through this journey?
So I still have a number of years left. I'm 15 years into a 50-year sentence. And so my main concerns right now are for the people who are days, weeks, and months out, right? And how little focus there is on the societal aspect of it, right? That there is this individualistic approach that it is each person's responsibility to lift themselves up by their bootstraps to overcome these obstacles, right? When Martin Luther King said it well, when he said that it was a cruel jest to say to a bootless man to lift himself up by his bootstraps, right? We've forgotten that. And so my concern is the lack of awareness, the lack of collective empowerment for community members to be involved in this work. And so the need to raise awareness around that there is something that all of us can do.
Thank you. Any other questions or any other thoughts or any other comments that people have in wake of what Leo's kind of shared with us today?
Leo, learned helplessness. I read that for the first time. I don't know if you read the same book, Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance. Yeah. That's a big one. That's a really big one. And if anybody hasn't read that book, I beg of you to read it, because it really sets the picture and the tone on how some of our systems unfortunately work right now, and how we could be proactive.
Can we put that in the chat for everyone, please?
That would be great. Yeah. I'm also interested to hear Kelsey. I see you come off mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Leo. I was just curious. I know you said it, but what is your thesis exactly on?
So I just started my PhD program,
Yeah.
and I want to focus
Yeah.
my dissertation research around how do we establish avenues of meaningful accountability and repair outside the criminal legal system. So rather than perpetuating the cycles of harm, how do we interrupt them through cultivating and creating the conditions within which people can intrinsically hold themselves accountable to actually repairing the harm based on the obligation that they caused by creating the harm in the first place.
Very
Thank you.
beautiful. And can you let me know how, like, what does it look like being a PhD student who's on the inside? I'm just so curious, because as a PhD student who's on the outside, and I know how much I utilized my classmates and things like that. So I'm curious about what that looks like for you and how we can help you with that.
Thank you. Being a PhD student on the inside is crazy.
I can't picture it. I'm so proud of you. This is so exciting.
Oh, thank you. And big love and respect to the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution, because they have accepted me on a virtual basis when everyone else is required to be on campus. And so colleges need to do this. And I'm living in a prison within a system here in Maine that supports online access, where I basically have 24/7 access through a firewall. Of course, can't just go off and do whatever I want, but I have access to Zoom, so I can be in contact with my classmates, colleagues. I can work professionally with the Alliance. I hold space. Just last night, co-created the Carter School Working Group on Forgiveness and Reconciliation, where we're working to cultivate and co-create spaces of collective healing. So I'm actively working as a restorative justice scholar practitioner and holding spaces in these ways, almost typical to what a PhD student might do on the outside, which is amazing.
Wow, that is truly amazing. I have 1,000 questions for you, because I didn't realize that it was quite that intense. I would Sal, maybe you can get have Leo get my information, my contact information. I'd love to sit down and chat with you as well, Leo, with some insights, having finished a PhD program within the last 5 years. So I just want to say thanks to both Sal and Leo and all of our performers. If everyone can just put your hands together for Dr. Lang, for Dr. Eitner, I probably screwed that up again, for Leo, and for Sal one more time again. I'm just really appreciative of everyone, and just a great session. Thank you so much. And yeah, I look forward to learning from you all and running into you again all in the future. Thank you so much again.
Thanks, Noel. Good to see you again, brother.
Thank you. And thank you, Sal, for welcoming me in.
Hey, Leo, man, this is the first chapter, right?
Yes, just getting started.
Okay. Good to see everybody. Thank you for being here today.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, Leo, can you stay on for like 2 seconds?
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to give you my email address. You can email, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yeah. So just shoot me an email. My email is VEST, like bulletproof vest, at BU.edu. Yeah, BU, Boston University. But it's just
Okay.
BU. Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Will do.
Awesome. Yeah, reach out to me. We'll set up. It sounds like you have access to Zoom or whatever technology you have, and that's just incredible. So incredible. And so, yeah, I'd love to just chat further. That's great. That's great, man. I'm super. I mean, this is it's incredible. Yeah, super cool. Great to meet you, man. Yeah,
Likewise.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.